All right, welcome everybody, students, mentors, panelists, speakers, to our last week, I cannot believe it, of the Junior Achievement of New Jersey's Women's Future Leadership Academy virtual series. We have kicked this off in November, and we are so glad that you have been joining us throughout the year. It has been such a tremendous opportunity to be here every week with all of you. And we thank you, and we are certainly ending on a great note with a fantastic panel of experts. And we're going to be talking about how you can achieve your goals. We've been talking all year about building leadership, about seeing the future, about getting out of our comfort zones, networking. And this is a great way to wrap it up. We are so glad that you are here. Before we begin, just want to say a huge thanks to all of our participating companies and sponsors. It is with these organizations' support that we are able to do this week after week at no cost to you students. And many of our volunteer mentors have been amazing, and they are from these companies. So huge shout out to our lead sponsor, Sanofi, and our participating sponsors, ADP, AIG, Janssen, New Jersey Resources, Carney Bank, CNBC, State Farm, Structured Finance Association, Allstate, AmeriHealth, AT&T, CDW, Crow, Deloitte, Johnson & Johnson, L'Oreal, PSE&G, Realogy, Santander, Subaru, Valley Bank, and Lockheed Martin. Great companies who are all invested in the youth of our state and the future of our women leaders. So thank you all. Today, our agenda, we've got a great program. After our welcome, I am so pleased to introduce an executive career panel talking about how we can achieve our goals, featuring some fantastic leaders from our partner, Johnson & Johnson. After that, we are going to move to the WebEx meeting where we will enjoy those collaborative mentoring circles that we all like, where we'll be just having some informal conversations about how you can take the steps to achieve your own personal career goals, whether they be education or career related. And then we will get together for closing remarks. And just a reminder, for the first half of the session, because this part is recorded, only our speakers are using their cameras and microphones, but we welcome all of our other students and mentors to please use the chat box. Say hello. I see a bunch of you have said hello already in that chat box. We love that chat box. And students, if you have questions, even though we will not have time to take a Q&A during the first part, you will have an opportunity to ask the questions to your mentors that are in your small groups. So if you've got a great question, please, your mentors in your groups are amazing. They are more than happy to answer your questions when we move to that piece. And then we end the session right before 3 o'clock with closing remarks. Students, just a reminder, even though today, this is the last week of the Women's Future Leadership Academy for this school year, you can continue to build your leadership skills with Junior Achievement. If you haven't earned your certificate of leadership, you can do that still. All you have to do is attend or view 5 or more sessions and submit a final project to my email address right there. Your final project can be whatever you want, have fun, be creative with it. Just a statement or some kind of piece that demonstrates some of the things that you've learned or how you've grown as a person or how the program's going to help you reach your goals in the future. It can be a narrative, it can be a journal entry, it can be a piece of art, it can be a PowerPoint, it can be a video, whatever you want to do. There's no due date and it is not graded. So just submit that to us because we want all of you to receive your certificate of leadership. It's a great thing to put in that college application, that job application. Also, if you'd like to become a student ambassador, we have 8 amazing young women student ambassadors who have joined already. It is open to any student who has received the certificate of leadership. We will be calling on our student ambassadors to serve as great role models of the program and help us build the program in the months and years that follow. So please visit our website right there, janjacademy.org, if you'd like to learn more about being a student ambassador or to earn your certificate of leadership. Or students, you can always just email me. That's my email address right there. Shoot me a note and we'd love to tell you more about it. So a little bit about goal setting before we introduce our amazing panel. Being a leader is about having a vision for change and encouraging ourselves to work hard to bring that vision to life. We're not all about the status quo here, right? We're all about having that growth mindset and continuing to learn and achieve. By setting goals for ourselves with a timeline and steps to get there, we get closer to creating the change that we want. And when you set goals, it's good to make them achievable. You can make them small and achievable, and that's what we're going to do later in our breakout sessions. And remember, goal setting is an important life and leadership skill. When you know how to set goals, you get much closer to making them a reality. So on that note, I would like to welcome our panelists for today from Johnson & Johnson. We have enjoyed a long-standing partnership for many years. So thrilled that one of our nation's and the world's largest companies and organizations is right here in New Jersey. And we are so grateful again for your continued support of our programs and the Women's Future Leadership Academy. So without further ado, I would like to welcome our moderator for today, Mirihan Anis. Mirihan, I invite you to take it away, and you can introduce our panelists and enjoy the conversation. Thank you all so much. Mirihan.
Great, thank you, Christy. So we have our 4 panelists: Lady Linares, Tejal Rauf, Melissa Vicencino, Nicole Wallick. If you guys want to say just super quick intros, or just say this is me.
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Marianne. Hi everyone. My name is Lady Linares. My name is Lady. Feel free to call me that in the breakout sessions. Just a quick background, just to give some insight to my background. So I graduated from Rutgers University. Love to be in engineering, so I graduated with the biomedical engineering with a focus on computer science. So when healthcare and technology mash up, I'm in the right place. So welcome everybody, and nice to meet you guys. And I know we're doing a fun fact, perhaps, Miriam. So my first job prior to coming out of school, or during school actually, I was a sandwich maker at a famous Wendy's. But essentially, I was the fastest sandwich maker, as I've been told. But that was a job into the industry as well. Hi everyone. I'll turn it over to Tejal, perhaps. But that's my first the industry as well. Tejal.
Great, thank you, Lady. Tejal.
Tejal, looks like you're on
Can you hear
mute
me?
still.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. Hi everyone, my name is Tejal Rauf. I've been with J&J for about 24 years. Also graduated from Rutgers, RU, and I got my MBA from NYU Stern. So a little bit of New Jersey, a little bit of New York mixed in. And a fun fact I would say of mine is that my first job, it was at TJ Maxx, outside of working for my dad's office, was at TJ Maxx. But I would say that ever since I graduated college, it's been J&J. So I started as an intern in my junior year, end of my junior year in college, and ever since then. So love to play sports with my kids. That's my little hobby. But I'll move this along and pass it on to Mel.
Hi everyone, I'm Melissa Vicencino. I've been with J&J 3 years now, and I'm also from New Jersey. I'm from Marlboro, New Jersey. And I also went to school in New Jersey, but not Rutgers. I went to Stevens up in Hoboken. And for my fun fact, my first job, I'm gonna jump on the bandwagon there with the first job fun fact. I was the one, if you've ever been to a golf driving range, that would drive around those little cars with like the little crated coverings that people would try and hit with the golf balls, that would drive around, pick up all the golf balls after people hit them at the driving range. But looking forward to the session today.
And I'm last. So hi, everybody. My name is Nicole Wallick. I'm actually from Doylestown, Pennsylvania, and I graduated from NYU in 2013. And just like Tejal, I've been at J&J ever since I graduated, so that's almost 8 years now. I also have a first job fun fact. My first job was actually at a local farmer's market. I was just a cashier after school, and I actually met my husband there. We were both working there and met each other there.
Great, thanks everyone. I'll super quickly introduce myself. I'm also a student from Rutgers University. I graduated with an IT degree, and here I am right after graduation at J&J after 2 co-ops here, so I'm very grateful for that. And fun fact about me is that I like to paint, but my first job was at Wawa. So there's that. We'll jump right into the questions now. So the first one is directed at Lady, and we want to know, what's your #1 tip for goal setting or goal achievement?
Sure. Thank you, Marion. So we use the acronym SMART, and what that stands for is S being specific, M being measurable. So essentially, it needs to be specific because you need to have a goal in mind so that you can actually attain to it. M for measurable, so that you can track your progress through time. If you don't track anything, it's not clear to see how you're progressing towards it. A is achievable and R is relevant. And I put those two together because it has to be something that's perhaps aligned with your passion, and that's actually attainable. And then T is time-based. So essentially, it's a goal that should have a start and end date so that you can see when you've met the box or achieved it. So an example just to share is I loved reading when I was younger, all different types of books, but now with work and with younger kids, it's really hard to find time for myself. So recently, I've set a goal to be able to pick that habit back up, pick up why I loved reading. And so essentially, my goal for the so only 5 minutes every day, minutes before I say a day, and reading something that's around perhaps mental health, around self-help, something that will build something that my learning agility. So I'm looking at nonfiction books right now so that I can tailor that back to work. So for me, that's more relevant and achievable because for me, I trick myself in that it's only 5 minutes every day. Take a time out, step away, hide from the kids, and that's totally achievable for me. And for 30 days, I think that's also a goal of mine because then I can achieve that within a set duration. So my #1, remember SMART. So that's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based. So remember that acronym. Thank you, Miriam.
Awesome. Thanks, Lady. Next question is for Melissa. We wanted to know, do you have any tips on how to overcome procrastination so we can get started on achieving our goals?
Yes, absolutely. And I think it goes hand in hand with what Lady just went through and making sure your goals are SMART goals. So measurable, achievable, time-based. But I would say the best advice that I ever got that helped me the most was around how can you break down your goals into small chunks of work. So subtasks essentially that you could achieve in, let's say, 45 minutes, an hour or so, ideally. So let's say in general, your goal is to get into a specific college right now. And with that, you're looking to build up your resume and you want to have 100 community service hours off the get-go. So I would suggest breaking that up and first, creating a goal to focus on, how can you create a schedule that will outline how many hours you should get, when you want to target to get them, to build your way up to that 100-hour goal. And then with that, maybe first targeting finding 2 local opportunities to volunteer, and then creating a task for each of those 2 volunteer opportunities. And then as you start to go through some of those subtasks, you create another subtask. How can you find another 2 volunteer sessions, and then start, tackling those sessions as well and building up to that 100 community service hours.
Great, thanks, Melissa. And next one is for Nicole. This one's one of my favorites. It's knowing what you know now, what would you change in your early career goal setting?
So back in high school, I was very hard on myself if I didn't achieve my goals or if things took a bit longer. So I think the biggest thing, if I could go back in time and change my mentality, is to be a bit more flexible and be more forgiving with myself. As long as you're working towards a goal, you will get there. And I love Melissa's advice of breaking it into smaller steps, smaller tasks. I work with a lot of website development teams, and if they want to build a page, there's a lot of smaller things you have to do in order for you to say that you built that page. So same thing, if you're going to apply to colleges, break that up into smaller goals. Another thing with early career goal setting that I wish I had done sooner was start your network. I know that there was another session on networking, and leverage your high school teachers that you have a great relationship with, maybe people that you work with. They can have really good insight, especially as you go into school, start your career. They might have a lot of great tips for you, especially since they've known you since you were younger.
Great, thanks, Nicole. I definitely agree with networking as early as possible. So our next question is for Lady and Melissa. Is there a time where you failed to meet your goal, and what did you learn from it? What advice would you give to our students when they experience a setback?
Sure. Mel, I'll go first. So I remember actually I was applying for an internship or was it a co-op when I was in college. And I mean, needless to say, I didn't do so well in the interview and I did not get the job. That internship was actually at Johnson and Johnson, so which is where I work at today. So essentially, I did a job, learn from, it's hard to break down question yourself. To Nikki's point, perhaps you are not as forgiving, but essentially you have to get yourself out of that rut or that low and think about what did you learn from it? How can you get past it? So, the feelings that you're feeling, frustration, but then like, okay, what's next? That's done and over. I can't go back in time, unfortunately, and do it over. So what can I do better for next time? So I would say that what I learned from that setback was I got to be prepared. I got to know my audience. I got to be clear in my communications. And when all of that's said and done, in my next, maybe not the next interview, but two interviews after that, I did eventually get the job. And then essentially what I learned was that through failure, there's a lot of lessons that you can learn. And feel what you're feeling because you're human. This is what I do with my little kids as well. When my little guy's frustrated, cry it out, let it out. But then, hey, you can't change it. What can you do better for next time? And take that from that negative to the positive. And what I took from that, I always are coming prepared to meetings or interviews. So then I know that I feel confident and I'm sure of what I'm going to portray and how to present myself. So I would say for any setback, just take a moment, feel the frustration, but then take a moment to reflect and what can you do better for the next time. And through time, nothing will be perfect. I was reading something about rock climbers. So they have a goal, they want to get to the top, they have a vision, and they have a path to get there. So sometimes their path is not linear. Sometimes, they may have seen a shadow at the precipice. So what that means for them is they have to go back and side to go up. So think about your goal is what is your goal? And your journey may not be a straight one. It may be like a treasure chest where you go back, forward, left, right. And just understand that's part of the process and you learn throughout the journey. Melissa, anything else?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I totally agree. And I think for the most part, you're not going to find many people, if any, that haven't at one point or another faced a similar situation what Lady talked about, where you're not going to meet every single one of your goals. And I think if you are meeting every one of your goals, you might want to consider adding in some stretch goals just to push yourself just a bit farther. But I think when I was in high school, like all of you here, I didn't get into every single college I applied to personally. So I know I had a couple stretch schools that I applied to where it was more like the wishful thinking, maybe I'll get in and it'll be great if I do. But ultimately, I did get a couple rejection letters, and I would say it's definitely not great to feel when you get the rejection letters, but to Lady's point, take a step back, regroup, feel how you feel, and then pivot from there. So in my case, every time I got a letter that came in, whether it was an acceptance or a rejection, just reevaluating where I see myself going to school that following year and taking it day by day, but ultimately just learning how to not necessarily meet every goal.
Great, thank you both. So our next question is for Tajal and Lady. What should someone do if others around them aren't supportive of their goals?
So I guess I'll kick this one off, Lady. So for most of my career, I've actually been pretty blessed, especially with J&J, to have a supportive, group of people around me, specifically my bosses. But I did have a period of a couple years where I worked for someone who didn't quite have, in my opinion, my best interest at mind. And so I don't want it at all. I think going back to Lady's point, you got to feel that frustration. You don't want to minimize the impact that could have mentally, emotionally on somebody. Because they're definitely, that person created roadblocks for me, unneeded stress for me, and I had to understand, and actually kind of live in the moment to quite understand it. But then at the same time, I refused to use that as an excuse, and continued to use other tools and contacts that I did have as very supportive around me to get through it. And at some point, I went actively looking and saying, maybe there's other opportunities where I was applying for new positions. And I'll kind of echo a little bit of what Mel and what Lady said, is that I kept applying for these positions and I was getting feedback, And I was aware that you can't just, I became aware that you can't just chase titles and you can't just run away from people just to try to find the right thing. But it really just taught me, that experience taught me, hindsight 2020, gave me great patience. It taught me to be proactive. And then just within a certain amount of time, a couple changes in the organization happened, and it resulted in me getting a new boss that was extremely supportive and a new opportunity where I was able to totally fulfill what I felt was missing in my career at that time, or in my relationship with my boss. So I think the lesson here is that the confidence you need to persevere is actually within yourself. And we may look at different external factors to whether look for support, and it's always going to be helpful. But you don't want to look for those external factors to blame when things aren't always going well. Encourage the important, surround yourself with people that are supportive of you, but also look within, because you have a support system in yourself that can be totally triggered. And I realized that after this experience, that I had it all within me, and you could totally trigger it using different tools, different other folks to trigger it off, versus having to always say there's someone there that's going to always pick me up, because it may not be the case.
Awesome. Thanks to Joel. And our next question is for Nicole and Melissa. Do you guys have any tips for how students can stay motivated during academic breaks in order not to fall behind on goals?
Yeah, I can kick this one off. So when I was in school, I went to NYU and they put a lot of emphasis on internships. And this, of course, is primarily once you're in college. Definitely leverage your career center and leverage your professors. So make good relationships with your professors. They might be able to give you some ideas in certain fields and different internship opportunities that you might not have thought about before. I started in NYU actually as a journalist major, and I was trying to see what options I had, and I took a chance and I took an internship actually in marketing at a startup. And I fell in love with it. I loved the technology space. I loved digital marketing. And it actually helped me reshape how I wanted to go through college the rest of the years, and also what I wanted to do early off in my career as well. And also when you're taking breaks in between school, think about trying something new, challenging yourself. You're not burdened by academics or getting your homework done or your assignments in on time. So try something new. It's always, even if it's picking up a new hobby, learning a new language, it's a self-development goal that you can help that might not seem specifically for a professional, but it actually helps you a lot, whether it's with your confidence or just getting experience with different cultures and different ways of living. So yeah, Melissa, anything else you want to add there?
Yeah, no, I totally agree too with the summer aspect. I think even in high school, I know one of my big goals for the summer was always how can I get a summer job and how can I build up my resume in that respect with getting some work experience pre-college. I would probably just add on, when looking at academic breaks on the whole, if we're talking about like a spring break, for example, where you may only have a week off, I would say it's just as important to take a couple days to detach and kind of regroup and focus on yourself. And then to kind of our earlier discussion around SMART goals and creating, smaller things that you could tackle in maybe an hour, 2 hours, something to that effect. Pick a couple of those that you want to just trickle in throughout the week, as opposed to kind of going all in and focusing your whole week on, pushing yourself.
Great, thanks both. So our last one is for Tajal, and it's, what is a goal young women should set for themselves if they want to be successful in a STEM career?
Yeah, so my opinion, I think you could be a part of STEM in a variety of ways. You think of the key strength that you have. Are you good at working at a team? Do you collaborate with others well in solving problems or trying to find a solution for something? Do you find yourself being creative at home, at school, using different materials to fix something or make something that you're thinking about? And are you curious about learning? Do you find yourself going online and just looking up something just because you heard about it and you're like, hey, I want to learn a little bit about this? So, initially some of these questions are not like technical in nature, right? But at the same time, these are the things that will help direct a person towards a STEM career potentially, and you can hone in on what you're good at, and most importantly, what you like to do. Think of the day where you might have felt the most accomplished. What made you feel that way? And based on how you felt, happy, or you felt like you did something that was really invaluable, and you made someone else feel better about themselves. So how do you harness that strength and then find a STEM application to it? You could be, I was in IT, but I never was the best at coding. Back in the day, that would be the thing. Like if you were in a computer science class, that means you're in IT. But I was always good at solving problems and applying technology and helping people and working with people. I loved working with teams, and I think people working in teams always make me a better technologist, I would say. But I think that's really the key, is really honing in on your strengths and then applying it to various ways within the technology, science, engineering, or mathematical world. And there's so many applications to that.
Great. Thanks so much, everyone, for all the helpful advice. I'll turn it back to Christy now.
Right. Well, huge thanks to all of our panelists. And before we move on, do any of our panelists have any closing remarks? Anything else you'd like to add? We touched on some really great things, but I wanted to give everybody the opportunity. Anything else you'd like to add before we close our discussion? All right. Well, certainly some great words of wisdom from all of you. We really appreciate it. And I think the big message here is, perseverance, breaking down those goals into steps. And one thing that I thought was interesting is you are all such successful women, but you've all experienced challenges and setbacks. So no one is immune to that. Even we can be at the top of our game and we can be the smartest person in the room, but we're still gonna experience setbacks. And it's all about how we bounce back from those. And to your point, using them, pivoting from them, and using what you learn to move on to the next thing. So certainly a fantastic takeaway, I think, for all of us here. And you've been excellent role models and speakers. So thanks again to all of our panelists. We really do appreciate you. So before we go into our breakouts, I'm just going to go back to our screen here with another huge thanks to all of them. And just kind of, okay, can everybody hopefully can see this. Can we see my screen? Everybody? Good. Okay, thank you. So again, our panelists taught us some great skills for goal setting, having them specific and objective, breaking them down into smaller steps. And a lot of this is about risk zones. And you heard our panelists talk a little bit about getting out of your comfort zone. Reaching a goal, especially if it's a big goal, involves risk sometimes. And some of those steps that you might take may be a little bit out of your comfort zone. And you can kind of measure them as far as how comfortable you are doing them. But if you really want to achieve those goals, sometimes you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. But when you break them down into steps, it's much easier to achieve. So this is what we're going to do. In a moment, we are going to move to our breakout rooms. And again, these are really just small group conversations, sort of mentoring circles with volunteers and students in groups. And volunteers, this is a great opportunity for all of us to really reflect and think about where we are, and think about what kind of goals we want to set for ourselves. So this is not just a conversation for students, it's a conversation for all of us, because we all really need to take a step back sometimes, think about what we want, and think about how we're going to get there. So this is just a guided conversation, and mentors, you're going to take the lead in your small groups here. You'll probably have an equal number of mentors and students in all of your groups. But again, these will be very productive small group mentoring circles. And we're going to work together to map out a plan to achieve your goals. So students, we're going to want to have a conversation. What is a dream that you have? So think about a big dream. Dreams are different from goals. A dream is something really big that we all imagine ourselves in the future. And the goals are the steps that we can get there. There's a goal